What's up, duelists? As many of you who regularly watch the channel know, you may know that one of my biggest hot takes on Edison format as a whole is that Fairies is the best deck in Edison format. And as players get better and better, and as the format gets more and more developed, more and more people will be playing this deck at a peak level and dominating tournaments with it. And the number one counter response, the number one hater of Fairies' response to this is, but Keegan, what about deck devastation virus? Keegan, what happens when they deck dev you? And today I finally have the answer. Out of the last 15 games that I have been hit with deck devastation virus, with this premium sideboard guide that I'm about to show you guys with matches and everything, basically I have only lost 3 of the last 15 games I've gotten deck dev'd, which is really insane. If you think about it, it's like a 80% win rate in games where you're getting deck dev'd in a deck that supposedly loses to deck devastation virus. That's pretty good. So maybe I'm cooking something here. And the secret is actually this card right here, Breaker the Magical Warrior. So basically what happens is, if you think about it from like a pure numbers standpoint, your opponent's going to deck dev you, right? And then they're going to be down 2 cards. And if they hit 2 cards from you, you're at even. And it's very, very difficult for them to hit less than 2 cards. So realistically, when you get hit with the deck dev, you should expect a 2 for 2 with a loss of information, which is pretty bad. You should expect that at the minimum. Usually, numbers wise, after this sideboard guide, it's going to be a 2 for 3. Okay, usually you're going to be down 1 card. But that being said, they have to sacrifice their normal summon. And so what do they have to do in order to protect themselves if they sacrifice their normal summon or sacrifice their best monster in play? Well, they have to set another back row to defend themselves. And how do they defend themselves against Breaker popping their back row? Well, there's only one back row in the game that effectively really stops Breaker the Magical Warrior, and we'll get into that in a second. So basically, in order to come back from being deck dev'd, what I've been doing is just siding in 3 Breaker in every matchup that could potentially deck dev me, except for like frogs, I guess. And it's been insane. It's just been like the MVP of the deck. Like, I think this deck is sleeper the best Breaker deck in the format. It's definitely one of the best cards in this deck that most other decks don't really get a chance to fully utilize to the same degree, because post board, most other decks, they have like other things they want to normal summon A, and B, other decks don't have like, they have a weakness to Bottomless Trap Hole and Rug that this deck doesn't have. So we'll get into it. Basically, the first statement is, if it's so good, why not main it, right? If Breaker's so good, why don't we main it? And that's because of this infographic I've made for you guys here. Game 1, look at this Blackwing deck, or partial Blackwing deck. Look at their trap lineup, right? You'll notice they have 2 Bottomless Trap Hole in game 1. And you'll notice they have a bunch of Icarus attacks and shit too. So basically, like, okay, if I summon a Breaker, I have a chance of just running into Bottomless Trap Hole. My whole turn is stopped. Everything is over. It's Jover. It's done, right? But game 2, look at how they're siding, right? They side out Bottomless. They bring in deck dev. They side out some Icarus. They bring in Light Mirror. All of a sudden, you look at their back row. None of these back row are good against Breaker, right? They just have nothing that is good against Breaker. If they play Book of Moon, they're siding that out instead of Icarus. And even that, you can just lone summon Breaker and pop the Icarus, and that's fine. Like, you're usually getting your +1 off that way, no matter what. So Breaker becomes insane post board because it just is a guaranteed +1 into any back row, unless they like held their dust shoot or some crazy nonsense like that, basically. But yeah, Breaker's just a guaranteed +1 into any back row. It clears deep prisons. So immediately, if you get hit by deck dev 2 for 3 or whatever, which is usually the case, mathematically speaking, if you have 1 Breaker in your hand, then all of a sudden you're back in the game. It's just 3 for 3. It's a bad trade. They do get information, but it's 3 for 3, and you can very easily stabilize after that. Even 4 for 3 is still okay, because you're at such low cards at that point, and you have the monster in play, that they need to like put something together. And oftentimes, when they are doing stuff like, let's say they have what's that guy? What's the dude? What's the guy? If they have a 2000 dark monster, basically, If it's not specifically Sirocco, which they can't even summon on the first turn of the game unless they're going second. If it's not specifically Sirocco, then they have to actually put multiple cards into setting up that 2,000 plus Dark Monster. So usually the deck dev, it is like 3 cards from them instead of like 2 cards from them. Or it's like a bigger commitment. And we'll get into that in a second as well. I've got some replays here to sort of demonstrate what I'm talking about. These are replays against powerful deck builder Bluff Knock, playing his powerful Dark Necrofear deck. It's a really cool deck. That's why I wanted to show you guys these replays. But yeah, we go first. We open up with the stuff, the sauce. This is going to show off the sideboarding plan. I'll show you exactly how I sideboarded. This is like bread and butter breaker switch. We set DD Warrior Lady, set bottomless, easy stuff. He draws up to 6, sets a couple back row, dust shoots me. All right, it's going to take the Raikou. I'm like, all right, let's just hit that back row with Typhoon real quick. Let's get this card trooper in play and let's get the aggression going. This is 3,400 damage. This is huge. Even if he has Gores or Trag here, I can just trade it with the Warrior Lady and the Dialk into the second Warrior Lady so for the token. So I'm not too upset by this. We just hit for a bunch. I attack with card trooper first because if he does have Trag, I want to get in more damage. And I also want to be able to threaten the Warrior Lady attack. So like if I attack with card trooper and he drops Trag, I can Warrior Lady banish it. But if I attack with Warrior Lady and he drops Trag, I guess I could Card Trooper run it over. I'm just being bad here. I'm not counting the number of cards in his hand, but it's a good habit to be in. If he has Gores too, I would prefer him to drop the Gores immediately on the Card Trooper so I get more damage. It's the same. I just want to be able to banish the Gores if he has it. I'm not worried about the token, more or less. Anyway, we set Solemn Pass. He sets 2 back row passes. I think if he has Gores, it's better to attack with Card Trooper first, but it's marginal. It's marginal. Trag, it's the same either way, more or less, but we get more damage if the Card Trooper goes first and we banish his Trag. He special summons Evil Hero Prodigy, so now we know he's up to either Diva Hero or the Necrofear deck. And because it's a Game 1 Vanities Fiend, I'm pretty sure it's his Necrofear deck. That's just like what he's been on for the last few weeks. So I bottomless the Vanities just because I think it's better to keep my monsters in play and have Solemn to back them up than it is to keep my bottomless in play. Bottomless is less useful versus like set monsters, whereas DD Warrior Lady can banish set monsters and make sure that my monsters get through for damage. And I'm kind of rushing him down at this point, so it's kind of the best it's going to be. I activate Card Trooper, I mill 3. Here I'm comfortable soul releasing because I want to set up for my Dimensional Alchemist. He knows I have Solemn, he knows I have Alchemist, he knows I have Lethal, so he goes ahead and concedes. Now for game 2, this is how I sided in the dark. I just sided in 3 Breaker, 2 Dust Tornado. I sided out Return, Soul Release, Raikou, Nova Summoner, and Trag. I think Raikou, Nova Summoner, and Trag are like the 3 cards I side out almost all of the time versus deck dev decks. Just because Trag is a card that I can't even commit to the field. His deck has Vanities Fiend, so sometimes it depends on what they have, right? Like if I'm playing against Blackwings, sometimes Herald of Orange Light is not the best. But if they're Grepher Blackwings, then Herald of Orange Light is still good. If it's a deck that can summon Vanities Fiend or Fossil Dyna very easily, then the Battle Recruiters get worse. And generally speaking, Raikou and Trag are like the slowest monsters that have the least immediate impact when put into play. I'm going to prioritize summoning Sangan here and Dimensional Alchemist and getting them into play and Card Trooper, because if they're in play, at least if I get hit by deck dev, then the monsters will replace themselves. So that's going to be my game plan. I don't know if he's on deck dev or Light Mirror, but I know for sure he's going to be on one of them. So that's why I just like default side in Breaker, default side in Dust Tornado, and then I'll figure out the rest for the rest of the match. Basically, after I see what he's sided, he goes ahead and starts off, sets 2 passes. We open up with Mind Control, which is it's a broken card. I feel like every time I cut this card, I miss it because it's broken. I just Typhoon, I Mind Control his monster. It's a tuner, actually. And here I'm kind of kicking myself for not having Ancient Fairy Dragon. I wish I had Ancient Fairy Dragon, but it's fine. My extra deck is wrong on this build. I have so many builds that it's like, it's wrong. But this was just for the purposes of showing off the Breaker sideboard plan. We synchro into Black Rose Dragon, set Solemn Pass. I should have probably set the Return too because Heavy Storm is gone. But I was a little bit worried about him, like, I don't know what I was worried about. I should have set the Return 2 to play around Typhoon because he has Typhoon. I'm like, oh shit. I should have set the Return to bluff it at least, or to defend my Solemn. He goes ahead and instant fusions, brings out Dark Fire Dragon, sacks for Caius, targets my Black Rose, and I'm sad that my Solemn got sniped. So Yeah, definitely should have set the return. That being said, I do have return to bring back Black Rose, which can crash with the Caius. So I'm going to take 24, but I'm going to take a shitload of damage off return and the 24 hit, but I can at least clear the Caius in a simplified game state if I need to. He sets one. I draw Shining Angel. I'm pretty happy about drawing the Shining Angel. I just T-set and pass. He goes ahead and sets one and passes. I draw Breaker, and this is just the strength of Breaker in this deck. Like, they never want to attack into your set monsters. I'm going to summon Breaker. I'm going to hit the old one, because that one's least likely to be deck dev. He probably would have deck dev'd me if the old one was deck dev. So I go ahead and hit that old one. It was Mirror Force. I flip up Shining Angel. I try to crash the Shining Angel. He hits me with deck dev, which is a 2-for-2 deck dev. But you see the strength of Breaker here. He had to sacrifice a monster that he spent, 2 cards on summoning, right? And I can just connect. Now I still have pressure. I drop him lower in life points because he has an open board. I pass the turn. He sets one. We draw Alchemist. It gets discarded. So now it's a 3-for-3 deck dev. Exactly what I was talking about in the initial part of the thing. But we still have the pressure. We have Breaker, so we can attack for 16. He draws passes. We draw Torrential. We attack for 16. He has nothing. We go ahead and return, trying to get Black Rose into play to attack for game. And he says GG's. And now he offers a rematch. And I was like, all right, I'll play again. I'll play again. I'll play this all day. I'll play this matchup all day. I don't care. I don't care. I open up with Mind Control. I am going second this time, but I do have Mind Control Herald. So once again, Mind Control is insanely broken. It improves going second. So does Sangan as well. Normally, for fairy decks, you'll see 2 copies of Nova Summoner. Lately, I've been cutting the second copy of Nova Summoner for Sangan just to include Grand Mole. I think Grand Mole is such a powerful card in this deck because it improves you going second versus a lot of decks. It improves your matchup into Hamster. It improves your matchup into like set Dandelion, set Raikou, all that nonsense. Even in the mirror match, Neospatian Grand Mole is very good. So I've cut the second Nova Summoner for Sangan because Sangan is kind of like a 5th recruiter. It's not as good as the recruiters at like setting up Christia, but it does find you Grand Mole, which I think is good enough. Otherwise, if you're not playing Grand Mole, I wouldn't play Sangan, but I definitely think you should be playing Grand Mole in this deck because it's just so incredibly powerful. Especially because this card, like, it forces D-Prisons, and then you can return it back and then just keep looping it, or de-alk it back and keep looping it. It forces Mirror Forces, it forces everything, and then it makes it safe for all of your other guys to sort of exist in that realm. So, going into game 1 here, he T-sets, passes, I have Mind Control. I'm going to normal summon Herald after flipping the Doom Caliber to check for Bottomless. I'm going to Synchro into Goyo. I'm going to attack for 28. He's going to de-prison me, which sucks. But I think it's okay. We got our 2-for-2. Mind Control Herald for his T-set. And that's about as good as it gets in an opening situation. I'm just going to set Legacy and pass. He just draws passes. I just draw, and I'm like, I can't really afford to attack into Gorge right now. I'm just going to keep passing. So I pass again. He activates Instant Fusion. He summons Darkfire. He sacrifices for Vanities. So he goes -1 into this Vanities Fiend. We're going to take a lot of damage. But we do have DD Warrior Lady to try and deal with this. And we also have D-Prison. So I'm going to go for DD Warrior Lady attack. He has a second D-Prison, which is really bad for us. Because now we're on the back foot and we're forced to set an obvious D-Prison. But what can you do, right? It's just the only way to proceed this game. He summons Card Guard, which is a really interesting card. I don't think it's a very good card. There are some issues with this card. Basically, it doesn't protect itself, which is funny. It can only protect other cards that you move the guard counter onto. And then I think this guy needs to be in play. He needs to be in play to protect the card. So if you like remove the Card Guard, then the guard counter doesn't really matter. It's an interesting card. It has some unique applications in specifically his deck because he'll summon Dark Necrofear, and then he'll use Card Guard to protect the Dark Necrofear while it's equipped to your monster, and it just makes it really difficult to ever push past that. But in this situation, we're just taking 16, and then we're de-prisoning the Vanities if it attacks, and it did. If it didn't attack, we would have been Summon Alchemist, run over the Card Guard, and we would have entered into a little bit of a stalemate. We draw Brain Control, which is okay here. It's not super useful, but Sangan can find us Herald, or Call of the Haunted can bring us back Herald, so I'm cool with just going for this and just running over the Card Guard and setting the call so our Brain Control can be live next turn. He draws for turn. He has Fiend Sanctuary. He sacrifices for Caius. He targets Dimensional Alchemist, and that sucks for me because now my Dimensional Alchemist is going to get banished. He attacks for 24. We're going to Legacy, try to draw Trigodia, And of course I ripped Gores the turn after I set Call of the Haunted, and I feel a little silly, but at the same time I'm still happy I set the Call of the Haunted so I can make a play. You know, you can't count on drawing Gores off Legacy. There's an equal chance I draw Trag. This is game 1, so it's the same thing, right? So I draw Solemn Judgment, which is really good. That means we can defend whatever synchro we make. I'm going to brain control his Caius the Shadow Monarch. I'm going to call the Haunted Herald of Orange. I'm going to attack for 300 and then 2400. Now normally, so I know he has Gores because of all the draw pass turns. Normally I have Dark End in my extra deck for this specific situation. For when you take Chaos Sorcerer or you take Caius and then you have Herald and you want to synchro into Dark End main 2 to blow up Gores. That's literally the reason I have it in this circumstance, but for some reason I'm using an older extra deck that has 2 Chimera techs instead of the Dark End, which is fine. I mean, it's not really going to make too much of a difference here because I'm going to make Colossal Fighter, and that's another thing that still walls out Gores plus tokens. So yeah, we make Colossal Fighter and we summon it in defense because if you check his graveyard, he does have those 3 Fiends now. So he can summon Necrofear and he can crash into my Colossal Fighter, so I have to summon it in defense. I'm going to set Sangan as well and set my Solemn. If he attacks a Sangan, I'm probably going to try to search for Honest, so that way I can secure attack position monsters without ever having to worry about my really low life total here. I pass the turn. He draws Snipe Hunter. I have to Solemn the Snipe Hunter because if he rolls 2 out of 3 chance, then he wins. So yeah, he switches these 2 to attack, but then he passes. I was kind of confused by that, but it's okay. I go ahead and switch the Colossal Fighter, run over the Gores. Just want to get him out of that Dark Armed range, basically. Unfortunately, if he does have Dark Necrofear off the top, he does set himself up for Dark Armed, so maybe I should have attacked the other one, but I figured it's better just clear the stronger monster in general. I set the Warrior Lady again, just so we have maximum defense. We can't really get OTK'd here, or like reversaled. We are at a really dangerously low life total, so I don't want to risk anything, basically. He goes ahead and special summons the Dark Necrofear that he top decked, and this is why we have the Colossal Fighter in defense. And then he attacks for 600. He makes a joke about net decking Card Path, which is funny because he's been playing this deck for a very long time. Bluffknock has been playing this deck for a very long time. And then sets the guy, and then equips the guy, and then yeah. So we shouldn't know that this is a Resonator, but he got too quick with the Snipe Hunter fingers. Alas, we know it's a Resonator, so that alters our lines of play here. We could assume it was a Resonator based off of how he's played before, but it could also be a Doom Caliber Knight. So I'm going to make the play I would make in the instances of either of those, which is the only play I really can make, is set Nova Summoner here. I need him to basically attack my monsters. And if he doesn't attack my monsters, then at least I have time, right? He attacks into Sangan. I don't know why he did that. All he had to do was just not attack. Searches Honest. He attacks my set monster. It's Nova Summoner. Nova Summoner special summon Shining Angel. Now this was actually a mistake on my part. I should have grabbed a second Honest. Yeah, this was a mistake on my part. Because if I grab a second Honest, then flip DD Warrior Lady, attack Colossal Fighter is lethal if he leaves it in attack. And flip DD Warrior Lady, attack the token is also lethal with double Honest. So it was a pretty big mistake on my part. But we rip Herald of Orange, which is fine. So we're able to just synchro on a Bryonic and clear both his monsters. And if he doesn't have Battle Fader, then we win. Because I attack into the Colossal Fighter, I get to special summon back the Colossal Fighter because it activates in my graveyard. And then I attack him directly with the Bryonic and the Colossal for game. So for this match, because I know more about his deck, I actually sided quite differently. I brought in... I sided out more cards. I sided out Card Trooper because I figured Card Trooper is really only good into Doomcal, but he showed that he wants to set Doomcal. He's on multiple Deep Prisons, multiple Caius, Vanity's Fiend, these types of things. Card Trooper doesn't do a great job attacking into set Dark Resonator, so I figured it's the worst of my cards that gets killed by deck dev. So I'm going to side it out. I'm going to side out that Nova Summoner again. I sided out One Dimensional Alchemist. I sided out Trigodi. I sided out Soul Release because I figured him summoning Dark Necrofear is not that big of a deal. The way we're outing it is like DD Warrior Lady or Grand Mole, so it's really not that big of a deal. And then if I have Christia in play, then he can't even summon it, so Soul Release seems kind of superfluous. I sided out Legacy, Return, and I sided in these 8 cards. I think I sided out one other card and also sided in the Freed, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think I last minute switched. Was it Call or was it... I don't remember exactly what it was. But I did side in the Freed as well. So you can go pretty heavy like into the can't be deck dev'd situation post board. He starts off with a T set this game, passes the turn back to me. I draw Dust Tornado, and yeah, unfortunately we do get hit by that deck dev on our normal summon. And I was thinking there's not much he can set here that activates deck dev, so it's safe for me to Grand Mole, right? Wrong. He can actually set Giant fucking Orc and deck dev me turn 1. So a little bit of a play error on my side. I was hoping to just bounce back his monster and set him back a whole turn, and then set Dust Shoot and then be able to check his monster. Either that or I would bait a D-Prison and still have Sangan to find the Recruiter to get my Christie alive. But as it stands, in hindsight, it's probably better to actually set the Sangan, set the Dust Tornado, set the Dust Shoot, and then on his turn, Dust Shoot him, take Caius if he has it, and then Dust Tornado can clear the D-Prison to make sure my Grand Mole gets in, and then if Sangan dies, then I get to search my Recruiter. So that's what I was thinking, and then I save the Mirror Force in my hand in case he goes for anything like Typhoon on my back row. They're both chainable. So I was thinking that in hindsight, the better play here is actually to set Sangan and then set Trap Dust Shoot, because Dust Shoot can prevent the Caius from clearing my Sangan. So that was definitely a greedy mistake on my part. If I had set the Sangan here, the deck Devastation Virus would have been much less impactful, of course, because we'd get Sangan, search Shining Angel, and then all of a sudden our whole hand is just amazing. Either way, though, it's still 4-4 cards right now. I set just the Dust Shoot here. I don't want to set the Dust Tornado without a target, because I don't want him going like Evil Guy Caius and then banishing my Dust Tornado. Same reason I don't set the Mirror Force. I want to see if he has Heavy Storm first, and I want to see what he's up to. I see his hand. He's got Mystical, he's got D-Prison, and he's got a lot of beaters. I decided to just take the Doom Caliber Knight, because this is the only card I can't out with like one of my top decked guys. Like top deck Thunder King doesn't run over Doom Caliber Knight. Top deck Freed doesn't out Doom Caliber Knight, and top deck Breaker doesn't out Doom Caliber Knight. So we take the Doom Caliber. He summons Snipe Hunter and he attacks, which is a bit. It's aggressive. I don't think it's bad. It's just very aggressive. He sets a back row and we top deck Breaker. And this is exactly what I was talking about. We got turn 1 deck dev'd, going second in Fairies, and it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter because Breaker is so good. That's how powerful this card is. It just like lets you pull back into games where you should be dead lost. Here I set 2 because I know his Typhoon is gone, so there's no reason for me not to set 2. He knows that it's Dust Tornado and Mirror Force. He draws Doom Caliber again. He decides to just set the Doom Caliber and pass. We hit DD Warrior Lady. It's 3 for 3 at this point, but we're still up cards, which is nice. I can just attack into a set monster. It's Doom Caliber. We're going to take 200. We pass. He draws Dark Resonator, which is a great draw for him because he can Black Rose me, but he decides not to. We draw another Christia. We're out from under deck dev at this point, so as long as we find the right cards, we can do the right thing. And we attack. It's Dark Resonator. He elects not to. He had elected not to Black Rose us last turn, and I was very confused by that. He draws Instant Fusion. He could use that to make like a Stardust or something, but there's really no reason to do that because his own Doom Caliber Knight would negate his Stardust. So I feel like what he should do here is actually switch the Doom Caliber, bait the Mirror Force, and then Instant Fusion into a 5-star, make Stardust, set the D-Prison, and then have Stardust D-Prison versus my Dust Tornado Breaker, which is actually like pretty good. But instead he goes for the Black Rose, and I don't know about this play because if you look at his hand, like the Instant Fusion, the Evil Guy, they're not doing anything. So like he would have gotten value, like he would have gotten the value. The Doom Caliber would have traded with the only high value card in play, which is Mirror Force. And then he would have ended with Black Rose D-Prison or Stardust D-Prison versus my 2 cards that can't beat Stardust D-Prison. And so essentially invalidating those 2 cards. Whereas now he just has D-Prison to my nothing, which he has no pressure. But I have, like, I got to trade the Breaker and the Dust Tornado basically for his potential Stardust, which those 2 cards wouldn't have traded for Stardust otherwise, which makes me very happy, honestly. He sets a back row. I draw Shining Angel. I know it's D-Prison, so I'm not going to summon the Shining Angel, partially because I also know he has Evil Guy, so he can special Evil Guy and then sack it for Vanities or Caius and then just out my Shining Angel. I'm going to wait until he commits the board a little bit before I get too crazy with it. I draw for turn, I draw Herald, and that's perfect. I can set my Shining Angel. Now, Vanity's Fiend still does fuck me here, but now Caius no longer fucks me, so yeah, he just switches, sets back or passes. We draw Warrior Lady. I just want to get his thing off the field, his D Prison, so I'll trade the D Prison for the Warrior Lady. He draws Fiend Sanctuary, so immediately, like, after the situation, he didn't convert his Instant Fusion into, like, a meaningful board, and he's drawing a lot of these, like, Instant Fusion, like, Tribute Fodder cards, and while these cards are, like, good when you have the combo, when you don't have the combo, these cards do nothing, so they are essentially bricks. And yes, this is reinforcing the point that I can win through deck dev if my opponent bricks, but, you know, that's just part of the game, you know what I mean? Flip Shining Angel, attack over the guy. He has a second D Prison, which sucks, but we have Gores at this point, so we're kind of chilling. He sets one. We draw Thunder King, summon Thunder King, attack the evil guy, pass the turn. He specials his guy. We have to negate it with Thunder King, just because. So it's a pretty good trade for him. He turned this into a removal spell. He can now Fiend Sanctuary, sack for the Dark Ruler Hades. This is a cool card, but it's not very good into Gores, unfortunately, unlike Vanity's Fiend. So I feel like, while it is a cool card and it is a good card versus our deck, generally speaking, it's just not very good into Gores. So we have the 2450. We draw D Prison, which is also good. We just run over the guy. And then I set the D Prison, pass the turn. He draws Dark Resonator. So he has a chance to go for Black Rose, but because he spent his Black Rose earlier, he can't actually do that. He could go for Ancient Fairy Dragon if he plays it, but I'm assuming because he has to have all those spots in his extra deck for Instant Fusion, he doesn't have room for the Ancient Fairy Dragon, and I think it's kind of tough for him to push past this. So he's going to go Instant Fusion. He's going to make a 3-star, which makes sense, and he's going to synchro into Goyo Guardian. Now, what the best play here is actually don't take the Gores, because if he doesn't take the Gores, then I can't Herald his Goyo, but he does take the Gores, and we're able to Herald the Goyo, and we end up with the stronger threat in play. We drew all 3 Christia, which is kind of annoying. I honestly think that 3 Christia might be too many, but overall, I've been really happy with the Triple Breaker sideboard plan. I think it's really good. I think it's really slept on. Like, you guys saw the power of, like, games where you should just auto lose to cards like Light Mirror, Deck Dev. Breaker comes down and it just keeps you in the game in a lot of ways that other cards wouldn't in that spot. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like it just fills the role really nicely. It fits that, like, post board niche card that you really need with this deck, and it's just an insanely inherently powerful card. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is a bit of a shorter video. I'm working on some cool stuff. I'm doing another tier list. The pre-RBET Rulers tier list is coming up, and I'm going to be doing some pre-RBET Ruler stuff, maybe interviewing some of the players, maybe getting some of them on for videos, some of the players who have their invites. That could be pretty exciting. Let me know in the comments if there's anything you want to see before the end of the season that I haven't yet done. I've also got a couple of decks. The last time I did a community post, people asked me to cover Chain Burn. A lot of people asked me to cover Chain Burn, so I've been working on a Chain Burn list and a Chain Burn video that should be coming out soon on how to play and how to play against Chain Burn. So that's a cool one. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.